Let's see how you like it. Let's go, boy.
It's been about 5 months since Season 3 of Reacher landed, but there's still one episode I have to emotionally brace myself for before rewatching. Even though the show leans heavily into action thriller territory, there's a surprising amount of humor woven in, especially when Jack Reacher throws out some of the sharpest one-liners or absolutely roasts the people foolish enough to pick a fight with him. But beyond the fun and adrenaline-pumping fight scenes, Reacher also dives into darker, more introspective moments. A lot of this comes through in the flashbacks that explore Jack's past in the military. These scenes don't just explain why he left the army, but also shine a light on the meaningful bonds he formed during those years. One storyline in Season 3 in particular dives into his role as a mentor, and it's one of the heaviest emotional gut punches the series has delivered. That episode, titled Dominique, really digs into a pivotal moment in Reacher's past. It introduces Dominique Cole, a U.S. Army sergeant who's assigned to Reacher. At first, he's not thrilled about having to train her, but he agrees. Over time, he begins to see a lot of himself in her. She's sharp, dedicated, and has a deep sense of justice. The admiration Reacher develops for her is clear, and it becomes even more painful when her story takes a tragic turn. Dominique ends up investigating a corrupt superior officer named Xavier Quinn. She gathers enough evidence to bring him down, and Reacher, trusting her and proud of her work, encourages her to go ahead and make the arrest herself. But that turns out to be a devastating mistake. When she doesn't come back, Reacher finds her dead, killed by Quinn. It's a brutal loss, and one that shapes the Reacher we see years later. He does manage to shoot Quinn, but the man survives, and Reacher is left with the bitter knowledge that in high-stakes investigations, you can't afford to make assumptions. That moment teaches him a hard lesson. Your first shot better count. While that episode is tough to get through emotionally, Season 4 might go even deeper. It's based on Gone Tomorrow, one of Lee Child's darker novels, and the opening sequence is intense. Reacher's on a subway and spots a woman acting suspiciously. He mentally runs through a checklist to determine whether she might be a suicide bomber. Sadly, before he can intervene, she takes her own life right in front of him. It's horrifying, and Reacher is left shaken, burdened with guilt, and determined to understand what pushed her to that point. If the show sticks to the book, this single moment could set the tone for the entire season and make it the darkest yet. Despite all the chaos and drama, Reacher is still entertaining at its core. It blends action, humor, and suspense in a way that keeps viewers hooked. But there's a missing piece that could elevate the series even more: deeper character development, especially for those who orbit around Reacher. The rotating cast from season to season does keep things fresh, but it also means we rarely get to truly know anyone besides Jack himself. One exception is Frances Negley, played by Maria Sten. She's one of the few characters who's appeared consistently across seasons, and her connection to Reacher through their shared military past gives her a solid foundation. But even with her screen time, there's still so much about her that remains unexplored. Sure, she's loyal, she's resourceful, and she's always there when Reacher needs her, but what's driving her? What made her who she is today? That's the part the series hasn't really touched. And while she's gotten more exposure in the show than she ever did in the books, plus her own spin-off that's already finished filming, it still feels like we're only scratching the surface. In the show, Negley is portrayed as a private investigator in Chicago, and instead of being obsessed with fitness like in the novels, she's more into sugary snacks and video games. The show does stay true to one important part of her character, her haphophobia, a fear of physical touch. It's a detail the show handles subtly but consistently, and it tells us a lot about her. Reacher respects that boundary completely, never initiating contact. In the books, Reacher even mentions she might have been born with it rather than developing it due to trauma. But apart from that, we're mostly told Negley is competent, brave, and intelligent without really seeing the experiences that shaped her. The book version of Negley is a bit more no-nonsense and lives in a constant state of vigilance. On screen, she tends to mirror Reacher's chill demeanor and dry humor. She's also one of the few people who will actually stand up to Reacher when he's getting too extreme, which makes their dynamic even more interesting. Still, even those moments could be pushed further. Negley usually ends up going along with his plans, even when she doesn't fully agree. The reason Negley appears more often in the show than in the books is pretty straightforward. Book Reacher is way more internalized, and a lot of the exposition comes from his thoughts. That doesn't really work for TV, so Negley's role becomes essential to give the audience key context and help move the story forward, which makes it even more confusing why her backstory is still mostly a blank slate. Hopefully, her upcoming spin-off changes that, because Negley has the potential to be much more than just a support character. She could help Reacher open up, give us insight into his past, and maybe even challenge him in ways no one else does. She's not the only one who could use more depth, though. The very structure of the series, where Reacher goes from place to place solving problems, makes it tricky to build lasting relationships with any of the side characters. It's hard to get emotionally invested in someone who's only around for a few episodes, and even Reacher himself remains a bit of a mystery. We know he's strong, smart, and funny in a dry, deadpan way. He fights for justice, but always on his own terms. Still, after 3 seasons, we don't fully understand what drives him. The show hints that his independence is all about freedom, but the books go a bit deeper. One even suggests it might be something in his DNA, and the show could really benefit from tapping into that. Let us see more of what shaped him, beyond just a few scattered flashbacks. Another recurring issue is how women are used in the show. If a female character sticks around for long, odds are she'll become a love interest. That's not necessarily a problem. Reacher can absolutely have romantic relationships, but let's flesh out these characters first. Let them have their own arcs, goals, and struggles before they're paired up with him. Negley is proof the show can do this, but it needs to happen with others too. There's also the challenge of topping Season 3, which many fans agree was the best so far. That season was based on Persuader, arguably the best book in Lee Child's series. All fun in their own ways, but not exactly rich in atmosphere. With Season 4, maybe we'll finally get a setting that feels real, lived in, and as layered as the characters themselves deserve to be. And that's that for today's video. Thanks for watching, and we will see you in the next one.